Hi, I'm Stephen Miller, and I'm going to be talking about Emily Dickinson's poem Because I Could Not Stop for Death. Just to go ahead and dive right into it, it starts with Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. Um, it sounds pretty cool, but in all reality, it's kind of dark. Talking about how the death angel, death itself, comes and picks her up and takes her away into eternity. Um, it's throughout that first little stanza, it's a very good example of personification. It personifies death as a carriage driver, you know. So on to the second stanza, it says, "We slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility." Um, at this point, he came and picked her up, and it's only him and her in this carriage and going to wherever they're going, because I'm pretty sure she doesn't know at this point. Um, they're going, and he's taking his time. He's driving, he's cruising at this point, he's not in a hurry. Uh, and he's very civil, he's very nice, he's relaxed. So she begins to relax. She uh, it says, "I'd put away my labor and my leisure too." So she quits kind of stressing about whatever's going on and just relaxes, enjoys the ride. In the next little stanza, it says, "We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun." Um, a couple of different things in there. It, of course, it's explaining the things that they passed, but it's using very good imagery whenever it's talking about it. Um, talking about kids running around in the schoolyard and a field of really beautiful grain and a setting sun. All things that we can picture because of the way that she said it. Um, and besides that, it's also a symbolism of her life that they are passing or that has passed her by. Um, we were all those kids in the schoolyard at one point, and once we come to the end of our life, we all say that it's like a setting sun. Um, we're born and the sun rises and then it goes, in its little cycle and it sets, and that's the end of it. So she's at the end of her life. It also uses a little bit of consonants, saying whenever in the third stanza it says recess in the ring, gazing grain and setting sun. But the consonants also carries over into the next stanza, where it says, "Or rather he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet only tool." So dews drew, of course, and gossamer gown and tippet tool. Um, but what happens in this little area is as they continue their journey, the sun just set, it starts to get a little bit cooler. But apparently he picked her up while she was asleep. Apparently death came to her in her sleep because she's only in her nightgown and a thin little cover up of made out of tulle, which is something very thin. So death came to get her in the night, came and picked her up, while she was asleep, took her on this journey, and she starts to get cold as the sun sets. Um, the next stanza says, "We passed before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground." First things first, she rhymed ground with ground. So, then it's a very, very kind of grim example, a very dark example, symbolism, imagery, whatever you want to call it, of the grave. Um, this angel of death, this death figure, whatever you choose to call it or say that it is, has taken her from her house, apparently in her sleep, has kind of taken her through her life, and is putting her at her final resting place. Um, the swelling of the ground, the roof was scarcely visible, and the cornice in the ground. Um, it's it's a double meaning. It's symbolism. It's imagery. Uh, and then you get to the final little stanza. It says, "Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feel shorter than the day. I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity." And just to kind of put a big red bow on it and end it, she says it was hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It was centuries ago. but it feels like it happened this morning. Just to kind of draw it all in together to say it was eternity, you know, something that completely we can't even wrap our mind around. But the fact that it was hundreds of years ago. So, I hope that you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been my explanation of Emily Dickinson's Because I Could Not Stop for Death.